Welcome to this special episode of Jimmy's Jobs of the Future. At the start of the year, we sat down with Rishi Sunak when he was Chancellor of the Exchequer to talk to him about that job and all the different jobs at the Treasury. It was a wide ranging interview, though, and with him being in the final furlongs of potentially becoming the UK's next Prime Minister, we decided to recut the episode and revisit some of the wider things that makes Rishi Sunak the politician that he is, what motivated him to get involved with politics, how he keeps his mental health in check, and how he's able to bring up two daughters. It's a fascinating interview and it's well worth rewatching in the context of him potentially being Britain's next Prime Minister. Rishi, welcome to Jimmy's Jobs of the Future.
Thanks for having me.
So the last time that we spent this much time together, I came to see you in autumn 2019
Yes.
to ask for
I
your
remember.
advice on going to Stanford University to do their exec ed course on the Ignite program. And you were very affirmative saying that I should go. And I just wondered how Stanford formed your worldview.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you went because you had a fantastic time. I had a fantastic time. And you're right, it was actually just totally transformational for me moving to California, living, studying, and then working in Silicon Valley and elsewhere, because you can't help but have that culture there totally infuse you, and it's everywhere you go, and it's a mindset where they're working really hard, they're dreaming big things, and everyone is wanting to change the world one way or another. They think in that scale, and that's quite inspiring. And of course, people accept that failure is a part of that journey. That's another ingredient of it. And the other thing is that they want to move fast, right? And they want to move fast, and they want to try new things. So all of that and many other things are kind of part of what makes the place magical and special. And I said I've tried to bring some of that thinking into the rest of my career afterwards, which hopefully is a good thing. Actually, we try and do it at the Treasury as well. But it's a mindset that celebrates people and their potential, and as I said, dreams big things. And when that works, it's really quite special.
Yeah, it's kind of, if you're going to take a swing, take a really big
Take
swing.
a big swing, right? Yeah.
You talked about the entrepreneurial culture and the culture of failure as well that's encouraged at Stanford. How do you encourage that in the Treasury? Because it's difficult, right, for government departments to do that.
Yeah.
And there's this huge team that you've just talked about. How can you go about doing it?
It's really excellent, right? So I talk about saying I want to have startup Treasury mindset, and what does that mean? It means moving probably faster than people are used to moving at in government, and that's kind of something that we've brought to the table. It means thinking a little bit creatively and out of the box and working with people from industry. I think earlier on, it means being very consumer centric and having the ultimate customer in mind, or person that we're trying to target as part of the process of policy design. And it means a willingness to iterate, and as you say, that's where failure comes. That's tough in politics, right? Because if you never fail, then you're probably not taking enough risk, right? And that's just a simple kind of simple fact, I think, right? And actually you learn by failing, and that's how you push the boundaries and expand your horizon and do interesting different things. In government and in politics, it's quite hard to fail, right?
Yeah.
Because when you do, it's all over the newspapers, or there's this committee and everyone's having a go at you for failing, right? And it actually it's politically damaging. It's so it is hard, but we've persevered with it. And I think maybe we were fortunate because there was a crisis, and that probably gives you, with coronavirus, that gives you a little bit more latitude to move fast because you have to try different things. People are probably a bit more willing to accept that that's necessary in a crisis. So whether it's, say, setting up the Future Fund, for example, which we'd never done anything like that in government, and we did it in record time. We worked with industry to do it. Touch with it, it seems to have done what it needed to do. And we'll now have to see how that portfolio evolves. But we will learn one way or another. We will learn from that whole process and experience, whether there is a model there that is worthwhile for the future UK economy or not.
The product roadmap for government is a lot longer than it is for kind of startups and entrepreneurs. And it takes a huge amount of time to know whether policies have kind of been a success and so on. You said, and you were quite creative when you first came into the role because you had to be, and there weren't many other options. Which policies are you think working best that could be potentially extended?
So, it's probably a bit early to tell, actually, funnily
Mm,
enough, on the crisis. To your point, you kind of need to really wait to see. One thing we are doing a better job of is actually evaluating them. So, government does
yes.
a very bad job of evaluating what's working and what's not, and then being willing to stop things that are not working. That's also quite hard. We talked
Yes.
about failure. That's actually quite a hard thing to do, to stand up and say, you know what, this thing just doesn't work. Actually, it sounds great and everyone seems to like it, but like, you know what, we've been looking at it and it doesn't really drive the change that we think, given how much money we're spending on it, and we should just stop doing it.
Yeah.
That's quite a hard thing. You don't hear us say that very often. So we need to evaluate more things which we're doing, use data better. And now when I am putting new policies in place anywhere, I kind of insist that departments or the treasury, if it's our policy, that we do randomized control trials, RCTs, or
Mm.
A/B testing where we can, to constantly be learning about what we're doing and whether it's working or not. So I've instituted that since I started, but it will take some years for all those things to bear fruit.
And do you think that's one of the most crucial things that's changing about government is that data that can be collated and that you can pull into, like you say, A and B testing, I imagine is not a phrase that have been particularly used in the Treasury.
No, but it's right. I mean, we do so much, especially during the crisis. We had so much we needed to communicate to people to try and get them to do different things or let them know what was going on. And we talked to the behavioral nudge unit that was set
Mhm.
up by predecessors. That was helpful. But we need to be doing that all the time, right? Companies do that to optimize their messaging. Like, what we do is more important for the most part.
Yeah.
So we should be doing the same thing. Hopefully that culture will change over time. My previous Chief Secretary of the Treasury, Steve Barclay, who's
Mm.
now the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, is rightly obsessed with this, and it's great. In his old job, he was obsessed with it. He's obsessed with it now, and is driving that agenda forward, helpfully with us across government. It will be a really good thing because we can do so much with the data if we bother to focus on it, analyze it.
And on that cultural side, you've talked about it being one of the hardest things, but we've got, like you say, more unicorns than anyone else in the EU, just gone past 100. We've had more startups than ever before being founded, partly because of the pandemic. How can we improve that cultural middle bit, the kind of Mittelstand in Germany, and how can we encourage the sort of ambition and people to scale up?
Yeah, you're right to frame the question in terms of culture, because a lot of people frame the question in terms of some kind of regulatory barrier or
Mm,
access to capital or something like that. And those things are, of course, they're important, and companies need to have access to the capital that they need to grow at that stage. And we're working on all of that. So there's lots of interventions that will help with that. But I think the biggest barrier is the one you mentioned, is that I constantly meet businesses where that they get to a point and for whatever reason they don't either feel ready or they're not quite wanting to keep growing, and they're quite happy and they've created an amazing business and they
yeah.
should be really proud. But what we need is for those really good businesses to want to keep growing, because that's actually how you drive growth and prosperity and more jobs in an economy. And a lot of it is cultural, and
Mm,
go back to the beginning, we talk about Silicon Valley. Because people start with really big dreams, they don't want to sell their business for quarter of a billion or
yeah.
half a billion, because they want to have $1 billion business at least, right?
Yeah.
If not even bigger. And there's an ecosystem that is supportive of that, whether it's the expertise at a management level, a board level, the capital. So there's lots of ingredients, but fundamentally, people just, I think, they really want to go for the big prize. You said it. If you're going to
Yeah.
swing big.
Yeah.
And I don't have a great answer for you on how we change that. And we've talked about this in the past
Mm,
about the importance of role models and trying to have people who have done that be more visible in our communities, in our
yeah.
conversation, as role models for people to look up to, and they can help hopefully inspire people to go on the same path.
When you graduated in 2000 or so, that was when like lots of people went towards the city. That was kind of the default place for lots of ambitious people. If Rishi Sunak was 22 in 2022, where do you think he would be looking to start his career?
Gosh, why? I mean, I would probably probably for me, creative industries. Like
Yeah.
that's, I mean, I think the industry is fantastic, something we're good at. I think it'd be a very enjoyable thing to do. So I'd be excited about that. I'd also probably be excited about anything in the digital space,
Yeah.
right? And I think in particular, if you look at what are the areas that are going to be transformational for us going forward. You mentioned a couple of them, right? So, it's going to be AI,
Hmm.
it's going to be figuring out, crypto and distributed ledger technology and blockchain and how that has the potential to change lots of other things we do.
Yes.
And certainly if you talk to people in Silicon Valley and right, they're raising dedicated funds just to invest in that space because they believe in the transformational power of it. Like those are probably some of the sub industries where actually, whether it's Web3 and other things, there's just
Yeah.
lots of exciting stuff going on.
And how do you keep abreast of all of this kind of innovation that's happening in the valley and so on? I think one of the challenges for young people is that there's massive information out there now, which is great in one
Yeah.
way, but also incredibly overwhelming and so on. And I'd be curious as to what sources of information that you read to keep abreast of all of this.
Oh wow, right. So well, obviously I have to in my job, like just have a glance at all the traditional sources of media, and I have a couple of brilliant advisors who also let me know what's going on because I try not to read all of it myself, depressing as it is some days. But for I think maybe the more helpful, the kind of slightly non-traditional
Mm,
things I read. What do I read? So I read, well, in terms of magazines, there's all the regular ones, and the probably non-traditional ones I read are things like MIT Technology Review,
yep.
which is fantastic. I read the Stanford magazine, as you would expect, Stanford Graduate School of Business magazine, just what's going on in management and thinking. I read GQ a lot, actually,
Yeah.
which has a lot of interesting content, I find. And then on the blog side, I read a lot of those. So, I mean, I love economics, so I read tons of economics blogs. But Tyler Cohen's Marginal Revolution is
Hmm.
probably one of my favorites. Greg Mankiw is another one of my favorites on the economic side. On Bill Gates actually has a fantastic blog, Gates Notes, which I
Yes.
find really interesting. He's a very thoughtful individual, obviously. And then on the tech side, Andreessen Horowitz,
Yeah.
the venture capital firm, just has I mean, there's so much content coming out of that firm, which is I'd say to spend any time spent on their website or on their podcast is time well spent. I'd say for people who are interested in understanding what's going on in innovation and tech, but also the AVC blog from Fred, who's
Yeah.
a New York-based venture capitalist, is also very good. And then there's a UK person who used to work at Andreessen who's moved back here called Benedict Evans, who has a great newsletter, which I absolutely love. And then from my old life, I'm giving you a long list now. So
Yeah.
from my old life, so I used to do investing for a living and
Yeah.
I used to work in finance. So I still read a few of those newsletters and things. You mentioned JP Morgan earlier, so they have a strategist called Michael Sembalist who does a weekly global strategy piece, which is called Eye on the Market, which is fascinating. He's a great thinker, really interesting insight to what's going on. There's a British research company called 13D. What I learned this week. That's also that's very interesting. Yeah, there's a bunch of finance stuff for you as well. So
Yeah,
yeah,
well,
a
that's
bit
plenty of New Year's reading there for
yeah.
people to get their teeth into. One of the when have you got any New Year's resolutions? And part of this as well is also I wanted to ask about kind of mental health. Like you've done some very intense jobs at
Yeah.
points and so on, and it must be enormously demanding. How do you just keep that kind of in check?
Yeah, I mean, the questions kind of go together, actually. I mean, it has been tough. So one of my resolutions is try and sleep more. That would be good, and see my kids more because they are probably, together with my wife, right? That is the best way to kind of keep oneself sane is spending time with family, I find. And now we have this new puppy, Nova, who's 6 months old, who is also, I found, a wonderful distraction because she obviously doesn't care about my day when I come home, and is largely just there, happy to be played with and very affectionate. And that has actually been really good. And I was very against having a dog, actually, so I was very resistant. But I must say that it has probably been positive for my mental health, if not my sleep and everything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, no, it gives a routine and
Yeah.
so on. And finally, before we have a quick fire round, I started by recounting that I took your advice on Stanford. This week, we found out that we're going to be having our second daughter. And so, therefore, as the father of two daughters, I wondered whether you'd got any advice on that.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yours are quite close together, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So you have two. Well, so the first
two
thing.
under two under three.
Oh my gosh. Right. So the first thing is be really nice to your parents because you're gonna need their help, both of you. That's what I'd say. I think it's totally magical having these two girls. I was rooting for a second girl after we had our first, and having two sisters in the house is really special. The one thing we try and do is just do a lot of strong role models for them, right?
Yeah.
As girls, and there's this great book that we read to them incessantly called Good Night Stories for Rebel Girls. And they love it, and it's just got lots of kick-ass women in it, and all these stories about them, and they really love that. And we also try and do lots of STEM stuff with them.
Yes.
And there's lots of there's lots of research that shows how girls and boys learn in slightly different ways.
Mm.
And actually, girls for STEM subjects, they learn slightly better through storytelling. So you try and do the storytelling to do things that typically they might not be exposed to. So we try and kind of index on that side of things, just to make sure that they get a full range of
Yeah.
of influences on them. So but I'd say first thing, be nice to your parents. You're gonna need their help, and So
That is good advice, and it's interesting. The role model thing is so true. Pip Jameson in our second ever episode said she really struggled to find female entrepreneurial mentors,
yeah,
and so she ended up targeting fathers who'd got daughters. And I always thought that's always kind of stuck with me a little bit.
that is just probably right. I mean, I was funny. I was talking just recently at an event in Parliament about women in entrepreneurship. There's an all-party parliamentary group, and I was speaking at. They'd just written a new report, and we definitely have got all this untapped potential of female entrepreneurs in the UK, which if we could close would be worth hundreds of billions of pounds to our economy, which is great, but also be marvelous for all these people. And we were talking a lot about that at this event as well, actually.
Make a big difference.
Yeah.
Brilliant. We'll just do the quick fires and then.
Great. Okay.
So, first paid job.
Working for my mum in her chemist. She was a pharmacist and she bought her own business. So she was a small business person, and she trained me to work for her as a dispensing assistant in the back of the pharmacy, but also in the shop. And so I did all of that, and I went out delivering medicines and whatnot for people. And I did her accounts and her bookkeeping. So that was my first proper fully paid job. Yeah.
James Ward-Prowse or Matthew Le Tissier?
Oh gosh! So look, my childhood hero is Matthew Le Tissier, but my mum, funnily enough, who now has my season ticket at St Mary's, is a huge James Ward-Prowse fan. She thinks he's incredibly sweet, and she was very proud. She met him at I've got a picture somewhere on my phone. She met him at something a little while ago and sent me this picture of him and her, which she was over the moon about because she thinks he's a total sweetheart. So yeah.
Bitcoin or Ethereum?
Oh God, I do basket of cryptocurrency.
That's safe answer.
Yeah.
Bored Apes or CryptoPunks?
Bored Apes.
Squid Game or Succession?
Succession.
Mario World or Mario Kart?
Mario Kart.
Red or
Best game ever, actually, on the SNES. If my brother was here, that and Street Fighter was how we spent most of our childhood, on those two games on our SNES.
Red or brown sauce?
Definitely red.
Do you keep it in the fridge?
Yes.
Favorite biscuit?
Maryland chocolate chip cookie. Plenty. If you get any of my offices, whether it's Downing Street, Treasury, or at home, there's a big pack of Maryland chocolate chip cookies everywhere. North Allerton office in North Yorkshire, same.
Dream job, if not this one, astronaut, deep sea diver?
Well, if you're talking real dream, then I'd probably say Jedi Knight or X-Wing pilot. But if you're kind of bring me back down to real world, then probably something in the movie industry, as we talked about before. So that's always been. I took this amazing class at Stanford about the movie industry, and it was great. It was one of my favorite classes. I learned a ton, and I thought, gosh, that would be a fun thing to do, to try and go and produce TV or movie content.
We are videoing this for the first time today, so it's the closest I've ever come. I think ever will as well, frankly. Best lockdown treat for under £60?
Lockdown treat?
Yeah. That you sort of ordered and
wow.
sort of ended up. I mean, you were quite busy.
I mean, I missed out on this big experience in one sense. Gosh, I have no idea. A lockdown treat for under 60 quid. I mean, the Peloton definitely cost a lot more than that.
What about double?
Double? Yeah, we had. I mean, we blitzed double in our house. Double and Uno. Yeah, I mean, they're great. Yes, I mean, we've done a lot of double. Actually, yes, we did a lot of double. Actually, my elder daughter Krishna just absolutely. She just rinses me in that game every single time, and it's very depressing. So we have, double and Uno are our preferred card, and we did actually, to be fair, we did do a lot of both of those in lockdown. Yeah.
Well, it's good to know that Chancellor has some weaknesses. Thank you so much for coming on Jimmy's Jobs of the Future. It's been a real pleasure to have you on.
It's been fantastic. Thanks, Jimmy.
Thanks for listening to this special episode of Jimmy's Jobs of the Future. The original episode was brought to you in partnership by the FinTech Alliance and PrimaryBid, who are opening up the market for stocks and shares. If you want to partner with us, you may well be a trade body that wants to do a thought leadership piece, or you may well be a company that is hiring fast and wants to reach tens of thousands of potential employees. Drop us a line at hello@jobsofthefuture.co or check out our website at www.jobsofthefuture.co and you can check out our partnerships page. Partnering with podcasts is a very new market, so we're open to all ideas if you've got better ones of how you think we could do it. Either way, feel free to drop us a line and we'd love to chat to you. Thanks for listening.